my life is on the precipice of death, and that these bears can bite, they can kill. If I am weak, I go down. I love them with all my heart. I will protect them. I will die for them.
We share the planet with millions of animal species, most of them harmless. But every once in a while, something goes terribly wrong.
A pastor is dead from a poisonous snake bite, the 10th time he'd been bitten, and the 10th and final time that he refused medical treatment.
A routine encounter becomes a headline. A moment of trust turns fatal. Some of these stories involve people who dedicated their lives to animals. Others are just bizarre twists of fate that nobody could have predicted. These are real people, real animals, and real tragedies that shock the world.
SeaWorld is keeping a close eye on a killer whale blamed for killing a trainer. The theme park reports Tilikum is sick with a bacterial infection in his lungs.
What happens when the line between human and animal becomes dangerously blurred? The crocodile hunter's final dive. Steve Irwin was a global icon, the khaki-wearing wildlife warrior who wrestled crocodiles and handled venomous snakes like it was nothing. He brought conservation into living rooms worldwide through his show The Crocodile Hunter. On September 4th, 2006, he was filming a documentary called Ocean's Deadliest on the Great Barrier Reef. The weather wasn't cooperating, so they decided to get some footage in calmer waters. Irwin spotted a short-tail stingray and swam above it for a closer look. It's standard practice. Stingrays are generally docile, but this time was different. The stingray felt cornered and reacted defensively, thrusting its barbed tail upward. The barb struck Irwin directly in the chest, piercing his heart. He instinctively pulled the barb out, which likely worsened the bleeding. His crew pulled him onto the boat and performed CPR, but he was unresponsive. He was pronounced dead shortly after. What makes this tragedy even more unusual is how rare stingray fatalities actually are. Out of thousands of stingray injuries each year, only 1 or 2 result in death. Most strikes hit legs or arms and cause painful but non-fatal wounds. A chest strike to the heart is almost unheard of. The news of Irwin's death sent shockwaves across the globe. Fans left flowers, candles, and handwritten notes at Australia Zoo. World leaders issued statements. Even people who'd never watched his show felt the loss. He wasn't just an entertainer. He was an educator who made people care about animals most would rather avoid. His family continues his work today, running the zoo and advocating for wildlife conservation. His daughter Bindi has become a conservationist in her own right. Steve Irwin's legacy didn't die with him, but the way he went reminded everyone that nature, no matter how much you respect it, remains unpredictable. Living with grizzlies until the end. Timothy Treadwell believed he had a special connection with grizzly bears. For 13 summers, he camped in Alaska's Katmai National Park, living among them without weapons or safety barriers. He filmed them, talked to them, even gave them names.
Well, I'm here with one of my favorite bears. It's Mr. Chocolate. Hey, Mr. Chocolate. He's been with me for over a decade, and he's been my good friend.
He saw himself as their protector, a bridge between humans and one of nature's most powerful predators. Park rangers warned him repeatedly. Wildlife experts called his behavior reckless, but Treadwell was convinced he was different, that the bears understood him. In October 2003, he and his girlfriend Amy Huguenard stayed longer than usual into the season. The bears were preparing for hibernation, more aggressive and hungry. On October 5th, a bear entered their camp. Treadwell's camera was running, but the lens cap was on. What it captured was 6 minutes of audio, screaming, pleading, the sounds of a brutal mauling. Amy can be heard begging Tim to fight back, then silence. When park rangers arrived, they found the remains of both victims and had to kill the bear involved. The audio has never been publicly released, but it was heard by a few people, including filmmaker Werner Herzog. Herzog had been working with Treadwell on a documentary before his death. After the tragedy, he completed the film, titled Grizzly Man. It explores Treadwell's life, his obsession, and the thin line between passion and delusion. Herzog himself believed Treadwell saw something in the bear's eyes that wasn't there, a kinship, a mutual respect. In reality, the bears likely saw him as just another part of the landscape, until they didn't. Treadwell's story raises uncomfortable questions. Was he brave or foolish? A misunderstood visionary or a man who ignored every warning nature gave him? There's no easy answer. What's certain is that wild animals, no matter how familiar they seem, are not companions. They're survivors, governed by instinct, hunger, and territory. And sometimes that instinct turns deadly. When captivity turns deadly. Dawn. Brancho loved her job. She was a senior trainer at SeaWorld Orlando, one of the most experienced in the park. On February 24, 2010, she had just finished a show called Dine with Shamu. Everything seemed routine. She was interacting with Tilikum, a massive 12,000-pound male orca. Tilikum was the largest orca in captivity and a star attraction, but he had a dark history. Before SeaWorld, Tilikum had been involved in the death of a trainer at a marine park in Canada. Years later, a man who trespassed into SeaWorld was found dead in Tilikum's tank. Despite this, Tilikum remained in shows, though trainers were instructed to limit waterwork with him. That day, as Dawn leaned over the edge of the pool, Tilikum grabbed her ponytail and pulled her in. Witnesses watched in horror as he dragged her underwater, thrashed her around, and refused to release her. She died from drowning and blunt force trauma. The incident reignited debates about keeping orcas in captivity. Orcas in the wild travel up to 100 miles a day, live in complex social groups, and hunt cooperatively. In captivity, they're confined to tanks a fraction of the size of their natural range. Some develop repetitive, neurotic behaviors. Aggression increases. Tilikum himself showed signs of extreme stress. His collapsed dorsal fin, common in captive males, was one visible indicator. The documentary Blackfish brought these issues into the mainstream. It detailed Tilikum's life, the conditions at SeaWorld, and the risks trainers faced. Public opinion shifted. Attendance dropped. In 2016, SeaWorld announced it would end its orca breeding program. Tilikum died in 2017 from a bacterial infection. Dawn's death wasn't just a tragedy. It became a catalyst for change in how we think about animals in entertainment. Hollywood's dangerous animal work. Stephen Miller was a professional. He'd worked with wild animals in Hollywood for years, training them for movies and commercials. In 2008, he was hired to film a promotional video with a 5-year-old grizzly bear named Rocky. Rocky had recently appeared in the Will Ferrell comedy Semi-Pro, playing a wrestling bear. On the surface, Rocky seemed well-trained and manageable, but grizzly bears, even those raised in captivity, are unpredictable. During the shoot, something went wrong. Rocky turned on Miller and bit him on the neck. The bear's jaws severed major blood vessels. Miller died almost instantly. Rocky was later euthanized. Investigators found no clear reason for the attack. There were no signs of abuse or mistreatment. Rocky simply acted on instinct. It's a grim reminder that no amount of training can fully suppress a wild animal's nature. Hollywood has a long, complicated history with animal actors. From the early days of cinema, exotic and dangerous animals have been used for entertainment. Lions, tigers, bears, and elephants have all starred in major films. But behind the scenes, the risks are enormous. Trainers have been mauled, bitten, and killed. Animals have been overworked, mistreated, or put in dangerous situations. Some productions now use CGI or animatronics instead of live animals. Others have adopted stricter safety protocols. Miller's death didn't get the media attention of some other cases, but it mattered. It highlighted the invisible dangers faced by animal trainers every day. These aren't just stunts or performances. They're life and death encounters with creatures that, no matter how familiar, remain fundamentally wild. The entertainment industry owes it to both animals and humans to ask, is the shot worth the risk? Faith over medicine. Jamie Coots was a Pentecostal pastor in Kentucky. He practiced a form of worship most people find hard to understand: snake handling. The practice is based on a passage in the Gospel of Mark that says believers will take up serpents and not be harmed. For Coots, it was a test of faith. He handled venomous snakes during church services, believing God would protect him. He'd been bitten multiple times over the years and always refused medical treatment. In February 2014, during a service, a timber rattlesnake bit him on the hand. His congregation prayed over him. He refused to go to the hospital. His family took him home, where he died hours later. It wasn't the first time a snake handler had died this way, and it won't be the last. The practice, though illegal in most states, continues in small Appalachian churches. Snake handling is rooted in a literal interpretation of Scripture and a deep belief in divine intervention. For practitioners, refusing medical care isn't recklessness, it's faith. But from a medical perspective, rattlesnake venom is no joke. It causes tissue damage, internal bleeding, and organ failure. Anti-venom can save lives, but only if administered quickly. Coots chose faith over medicine, and it cost him his life. His death raised ethical and legal questions. Should the government intervene in religious practices that are clearly dangerous? Or is it a matter of personal freedom? Coots himself was unapologetic. He appeared on the reality show Snake Salvation, which documented his ministry. He believed his way of life was righteous, even if others saw it as suicidal. His son Cody continues the practice today. Faith, for some, really is stronger than fear. The monkey that changed history. Alexander I of Greece wasn't a particularly famous king. He ruled from 1917 to 1920, a figurehead installed by political powers during World War I, but his death became one of the strangest footnotes in European history. In October 1920, Alexander was walking his dog in the royal gardens of Tatoi. The dog was attacked by a Barbary macaque, a type of monkey kept on the grounds. Alexander rushed to intervene. As he tried to separate them, a second monkey joined in and bit him on the leg and torso. At first, the wounds seemed manageable, but within days, they became infected. Sepsis set in. Doctors tried everything available at the time, but antibiotics didn't exist yet. Alexander suffered for 3 weeks before dying on October 25th. He was only 27 years old. His death had massive political consequences. Greece was in the middle of the Greco-Turkish War. Alexander's father, the exiled King Constantine, was recalled to the throne. Political instability followed. Some historians argue that Alexander's death indirectly changed the outcome of the war. It's bizarre to think that a monkey bite could alter the course of nations, but history is full of small, random events that cascade into something much larger. Alexander's story is a reminder that even kings are vulnerable to the simplest of misfortunes. A dogfight, a monkey, an infection, and suddenly, the entire trajectory of a country shifts. Urban wildlife attacks. Surinder Singh Bajwa was the deputy mayor of Delhi, a bustling metropolis of millions. In 2007, he was at his home when a gang of rhesus macaques attacked him. Monkeys are a common sight in Indian cities, often living in parks, temples, and residential areas. Most of the time, they're harmless, scavenging for food. But when they feel threatened or territorial, they can become aggressive. Bajwa tried to fight off the monkeys. In his panic, he retreated to his balcony on the first floor. He lost his balance and fell, hitting his head on the ground below. He died from the injuries sustained in the fall. Technically, the monkeys didn't kill him directly, but they caused the chain of events that led to his death. The incident made international headlines, shining a light on a growing problem in Indian cities: urban wildlife conflict. Monkeys in Delhi have become bolder over the years. They snatch food from pedestrians, invade homes, and sometimes attack people. The Indian government has tried various solutions, from trapping and relocating monkeys to employing langurs, larger monkeys that scare off the smaller macaques. Nothing has fully worked. The monkeys adapt. They've learned to navigate city life just as well as the humans they live alongside. Bajwa's death wasn't an isolated case. Every year, people in India are injured or killed in encounters with urban monkeys. It's a stark reminder that as cities expand into natural habitats, the line between human and animal territory blurs. We're sharing our streets, our homes, and sometimes our fates with creatures we never invited in. Ancient Death by Airborne Tortoise. Aeschylus was one of the greatest playwrights of ancient Greece. He's often called the father of tragedy. His works influenced theater for centuries, but his death, if the legend is true, was anything but tragic in the classical sense. It was absurd. According to ancient sources, Aeschylus was killed when an eagle dropped a tortoise on his head. The bird, looking for a way to crack open the shell, supposedly mistook his bald head for a rock. So did it actually happen? Maybe. The story comes from ancient writers like Valerius Maximus and Pliny the Elder, who wrote centuries after Aeschylus died. Ancient biographies often mixed fact and myth, especially when it came to famous figures. The tale fits a pattern of ironic deaths that Greek and Roman writers loved to record. A great man, undone by something trivial and bizarre. But here's the thing. Eagles do drop prey from great heights to break them open. It's a documented behavior, and tortoises were common in Greece. Could one really kill a person? It's unlikely, but not impossible. A tortoise dropped from a high enough altitude could cause serious injury. Whether it happened to Aeschylus specifically is another question. What's certain is that his death has been remembered, true or not, for over 2,000 years. Sometimes, the story is more important than the facts. The coyote attack. No one expected. Taylor Mitchell was a 19-year-old folk singer from Toronto. In October 2009, she was hiking alone on the Skyline Trail in Cape Breton Highlands National Park, Nova Scotia. It was a beautiful fall day. The trail was well-maintained and popular. Nothing about the hike seemed dangerous. Then, 2 eastern coyotes appeared. They didn't run away. They attacked. Hikers nearby heard her screaming and called for help. Park staff and paramedics arrived quickly, but Taylor had already sustained severe injuries. She was airlifted to a hospital in Halifax where she died the next day. It remains the only documented fatal coyote attack on an adult human in Canadian history. Coyotes typically avoid humans. They're scavengers, not apex predators. Attacks on people are extremely rare, and fatal attacks even more so. So what happened? Wildlife experts investigated. The coyotes involved were larger than average, likely due to hybridization with wolves. Eastern coyotes have more wolf DNA than their western counterparts, making them bolder and more capable hunters. The area had a healthy population of these hybrid coyotes, and they'd been habituated to humans through frequent contact with hikers. Some had been fed, either intentionally or by scavenging from picnic areas. That loss of fear is dangerous. Taylor's death shocked Canada. It challenged the common perception of coyotes as timid, harmless animals. Parks Canada increased monitoring and removed several coyotes from the area. Signs were posted warning hikers, but the reality is, as human activity expands into wild spaces, these encounters will continue. Taylor's story is a tragic reminder that even small predators can turn deadly under the right circumstances. Dogs as deadly weapons. Diane Whipple was a lacrosse coach living in San Francisco. On January 26, 2001, she returned to her apartment building and encountered two massive Presa Canario dogs in the hallway. The dogs belonged to her neighbors, Marjorie Knoller and Robert Noel, who were lawyers with connections to the Aryan Brotherhood. The dogs, named Bane and Hera, had been bred for size and aggression. They weighed over 100 pounds each. As Diane tried to unlock her door, the dogs attacked. Knoller was present but couldn't control them. The attack lasted several minutes. Diane was bitten over 77 times. Her injuries were catastrophic. She died later that day from blood loss and shock. The case became a media sensation. It wasn't just a dog attack, it was a criminal case. Prosecutors argued that the owners knew the dogs were dangerous and did nothing to prevent the attack. Robert Noel was convicted of involuntary manslaughter. Marjorie Knoller was initially convicted of second-degree murder, a rare and controversial charge in a dog attack case. The verdict was later reduced to manslaughter, though it was reinstated on appeal years later. The case sparked nationwide debates about dangerous dog breeds, owner responsibility, and whether certain breeds should be banned outright. Presa Canarios aren't a common breed, but they're powerful and protective. In the wrong hands, they can be lethal. Diane Whipple's death wasn't an accident. It was the result of negligence, arrogance, and a refusal to acknowledge reality. The dogs had shown aggression before. The owners ignored it, and a woman died because of it. This wasn't nature being unpredictable. This was human failure. A scientist's final experiment. Carl P. Schmidt was one of the most respected herpetologists of his time. He worked at the Field Museum in Chicago and had handled thousands of snakes throughout his career. In September 1957, a colleague brought him a young boomslang snake from Africa for identification. The boomslang is venomous, but Schmidt underestimated the danger. Young snakes of the species were thought to have weak venom. He was wrong. While examining the snake, it bit him on the thumb. Schmidt didn't panic. Instead, he did what any dedicated scientist would do. He documented it. He kept a detailed diary of his symptoms, writing down everything he felt as the venom took effect. At first, it seemed manageable. Mild pain, some swelling, but within hours, things got worse. He noted mucous membranes bleeding, chills, and difficulty breathing. By the next morning, he collapsed. He died 24 hours after the bite. Schmidt's notes became a valuable record of boomslang envenomation in humans, one of the few documented cases at the time. His colleagues published his diary posthumously, and it's still referenced in toxicology studies today. The boomslang, it turned out, has hemotoxic venom that causes internal bleeding. It's slow-acting but deadly if untreated. Modern anti-venom exists now, but it didn't in 1957. Schmidt's death is tragic, but it reflects a certain kind of scientific dedication. He treated his own dying body as a research subject. Some see it as noble. Others see it as a cautionary tale about underestimating nature. Either way, his final contribution to science came at the cost of his own life. It's a reminder that even experts can be wrong, and that respect for the natural world must never slip into complacency. The case that changed state laws. Kenneth Pinion was an engineer living in Washington state. In July 2005, he died from internal injuries sustained during a sexual encounter with a horse. The incident occurred on a farm in Enumclaw, where a group of men regularly engaged in such activities. Videos were recorded and shared online. Pinion, known by the username Mr. Hands, suffered a perforated colon and died shortly after being dropped off at a hospital. His death was ruled accidental, At the time, bestiality was not explicitly illegal in Washington. The case became international news, not just because of its disturbing nature, but because it exposed a legal gap. There were no laws against it, so no one could be charged with a serious crime. The man who owned the farm was charged only with trespassing. Public outrage followed. Animal rights groups, lawmakers, and citizens demanded change. In 2006, Washington passed a law making bestiality a felony. The case became a catalyst for similar legislation in other states. It forced an uncomfortable conversation about animal welfare, consent, and the boundaries of personal freedom. Animals can't consent. They can be harmed, physically and psychologically, by such acts. The law recognized that. Pinion's death is deeply unsettling, but it led to tangible legal reform. It's a strange and tragic example of how one person's actions can ripple outward, forcing society to confront issues it would rather ignore. The farm was shut down. The videos were removed, but the case remains a dark footnote in internet history and a reminder that some boundaries exist for a reason.